This is RTT with Terry the Tiger.
Thank you, Elmo and friends. So today I would like to go ahead and start off by saying thank you to my sponsor over at Cactus Chick Creations. Again, you guys can always go ahead and check her out on Instagram over at Cactus Chick Creations. It's where she's got her pictures of things that you can buy, things that you can get from her shop. You can also find the profile link to her Etsy shop, to where you can find more of her things that she sells, like t-shirts and signs and posters and things like that. T-shirts, custom t-shirts start at $15 to $18, depending on what you would like. Kids and infants are about $10. And of course she does tote bags for $5. And you can check out more of that stuff over there on her page on Instagram and Etsy. So today, this week I've been listening and getting a lot of updates and seeing a lot of posts on Twitter and on other sites about the naval agent who recorded a triangular shaped object over some boats, some boats out in the water. And the Pentagon is confirming that this is true and this is a real footage. The footage, of course, is filmed from, I believe it was in 2019. It didn't happen a couple days ago, although the video was released on 16th of April. Now, before I really get into this, I would like to clarify for anybody who doesn't quite understand or get that when it comes to conspiracy theorists or conspiracy theories as well, there are levels to it. And if you don't know, then you're just looking at all of us conspiracy theorists like we're wackos and crazy. But in return, that's how we're looking at some of you who are just completely closed-minded about this. Now, when I say there's levels to conspiracy theorists, I mean there's those who believe the earth is flat. You know, those guys are completely crazy. And for the most part, I agree with you 100%. If you're a skeptic who does not believe in some of these conspiracy theories, the earth being flat is crazy. And the moon landing being fake, also being a fraud, you know, that's all part of that first category tier of crazy theorists. Okay, those ones are the crazy ones. And those ones, I agree with you. Okay, same level, there's the ones who think that the movie Terminator and iRobots is going to be the future. You know, those ones are a little bit on the crazier side. I do agree that technology is going to take over, but not in that sense. Okay, and I'll get to that. But those ones are all in that first category. You know, if you've ever seen that movie Night School with Kevin Hart and I can't remember her name, Tiffany Haddish. I called her Haddish the other day and they laughed at me, so I know it's not that. But that was a funny movie. But in that movie, there's a guy, I think he's one of the Wayne brothers, could be wrong. He talks about being woke. And he talks about that movie Terminator, you know, when they take over everything. Like, those are the type of loonies I'm talking about. That's the first tier. Okay? From there, then you've got the ones who think who are on the right track, but they're off. They're like on that track that's gonna go off the cliff, because now they're the ones who do agree with how the and when I say Illuminati, I mean how the true secret society works, but they still think that the president and Beyonce or and Jay-Z they're the ones who are in control. No, they're not. They're not. They're just the puppets. Okay? And that's the next tier of crazies. The ones who don't believe that the earth is flat. Okay, they're on the right track with the world. And they know that there is the industry is created for us to buy, and it's not just one person, but it's a specific family, but they don't know to the extent who. Okay, so that's like another tier. So, and then you got, depending on who you're talking to me, I would say there's the three, because then when you're talking to somebody like me, who I'm on the fact that, like, Jay-Z, Beyonce, and them, they're the puppet. Okay, they're like that. Then you've got the government leaders, the president, Congress. You've got them. They're the string. Okay, and then from there you have the news, your oil industries, your the NASA type industry, the mining industries, the coal industries, those ones. Because if you know much about that, there's only certain few people who own that, who actually own that, like the BP industries. There's a family that owns that, but there are people who have stakes in it, the way, again, and this is all in the same tier. New York Stock Exchange, this one is all on that same tier. And this one is, the way the puppet goes. You got the puppet, the strings, and you got the little metal rods, or the boards that hold the strings together. That's them. Okay, they're not the puppeteers. They're not the one who's playing with the puppet. The person who's playing with the puppet, the people who are playing with the puppet, is the owners of the banks, the banking system. Federal Reserve Bank, in the end. They're the puppeteers, because in the end, they have all the money. Because when you say the government, the US is in debt, the Chinese is in debt, they're all in debt. Who are they in debt to? They're in debt to the Federal Reserve Bank. And the other Federal Reserve banks, because that one is the one that is associated with the United States, I believe Canada, and parts of the Caribbean right there. Then you've got the London's World Bank, and then there's another bank out in, I think, Germany, and then Russia has one. There might be one more. This is owned by a family, and they're the puppeteers. Okay, and if you know anything about the Rothschilds, and you know that they're the real masterminds behind it all, and the banking system is really the ones behind it all, and the IRS, and they're the ones who's all behind it all. They're the ones who plays the puppets and plays the games and says, do this and do that. And you pay attention to the real news article, and you find out that, hey, the same day as the football game, the big football game that everybody wants to watch, is the same time that there's a debate that nobody wants to watch, or some people care about but rather watch the game. They're the ones who do that one, and for its reasons. Okay? Even the Queen doesn't pull the strings for everything. Okay? These guys do, the Rothschilds. And if you're somebody who believes that that is true, and you believe in what I just said, then you, in my opinion, are not one of the crazy loonies that most people think conspiracy theorists are. Okay? If you know that the roads were designed for you to go in certain ways so that way you don't run into certain things, then you're on the right path of not being crazy, in my opinion. Okay? Other people might think you are, but hey, you look at them and you're just like, ha ha ha. Yeah. So, that being said, these aliens that they have said are being released. Now, this something about the Trump administration is annoying, but when he passed the bill for the $1 billion, there was something in there where he also stated that they had to release information about the aliens and information about what we had on them, what the government and the United States Air Force had on them. So, as of late, I have been seeing, like I said, a lot more stuff coming out about aliens and all of this other things. Now, if you have ever seen it is called Bob Lazar, Area 51. That is a documentary about this guy named Bob Lazar, who is, again, in my opinion, he's not a crazy. He's one of those real conspiracy theorists. He was hired by the government, because the way the government works is they contract little industries to do their work. So he was contracted through the government to reverse engineer extraterrestrial technology at the real place that needs to be looked into. Not Area 51, but the place called Site S4. He worked on it in the 80s, and he felt that the material and everything that he was working on was important, that the human and American society needed to know what he was working on, and that we needed to know that the American people, because that's who he was working for, had extraterrestrial life. Whether or not, he says he never actually seen an alien, but he says that he had been working with technology and he had been doing high engineering since he was a little kid, working with jet fuel, and he super smart, went to school at, I think it was Cal State. He worked for this other company, this aero technology company that was working on some, like, pretty much at the time it was to try to figure out one of the evolutions of string theory. But then he got this job offer to work at this site at S4, and he just describes a lot of the things that he worked with. And he talked about pretty much finger recognition technology, which we did not have prior to the 90s or late 80s. And we did have, he says that he did come across a dismantled, possibly UFO type ship. It wasn't necessarily a full one, but it was in parts. It's a really good documentary. I suggest watching it. But he talks about just some of the technology that we never had before this incident. And since he's worked on it, because this documentary came out in the last, I think, 3 or 4 years, to where, now we have freaking face recognition on our cell phones, print thumb ID on our cell phones, voice recognition. Some of this technology that he says he was working with, reverse engineering it from this extraterrestrial thing, and now we have it. Now, one of the things he says he was working on was a possible hovercraft, which he never, fully, obviously, we don't have hover anythings yet, truly. They never got to do. But he does talk about finding an element. He talks about this element that he said cannot be from this earth, saying it can be used as a weapon. And the element is called element 115. Now, element 115 is very new. Now, when I was in school, when you looked at a periodic chart and you seen the basic, 100, there was only, and like on the bottom, it had like this another row, and it had no other fill-ins, but it had spots. Well, at least for me, it had one down below. And when I re-looked, they said it was discovered in 2003. He talked about this in the 90s, and people told him he was full of crap, and that what he was saying wasn't real or true, and that there was no such thing as an element 115. But yet now today there is a 115 on a periodic chart. It's crazy. Another one, he said that in order to go into S4, that you had to go, and he said at the time, because the technology was very new and it was not as cool as it is today, but pretty much he got his hand and he would put it on this. It would look like to us an iPad, a long iPad. And it had like these pins on it, 5 pins for your fingers. And it was able to put his hand on it, and it would scan his fingerprint that way. Again, people, when he said that this is what we had, because he went out on several TV shows and talk shows, it got very dangerous for him, actually. And when he did that, people told him that we don't have that stuff. You can't do that. It's not possible. But yet, I think it's like 10 years later, the movie Charlie's Angels, again, they're about spies. They have all the next, greatest, latest technology. And in the movie Charlie's Angels, there's a scene where they're breaking into, which that movie is crazy in itself, but they're breaking into this facility, that Eric something's facility, and they're stealing a chip. And the chip itself is crazy because that chip is able to locate anybody by the sound of their voice. So if you make a phone call and you have that on, they could locate you by that phone call. Like, it's crazy. And it goes through all of the monitors, computers, Wi-Fi, everything, just to find that voice. Super, super privacy hacking and completely illegal, but it's a movie and, it's crazy. And in order to do that, though, and get into the vault, they had to do a fingerprint recognition and a laser ID scanner. And you see them using the fingerprints. Like in this one, it's a jelly. So it was like they put their hand in it and it was gel filled and it, felt the fingerprint. Same idea, 10 years later, obviously it's a movie, so it's, cooler technology, but even still, we have iPhones that do the same thing virtually without the pins, without actually touching our fingers. And people told him he was lying. He says that he also, lasers came from alien technology, that we never had them before the Roswell crash in 1947, I believe it was. And after that is when we started seeing the first plunge of technology that we've truly never seen before. Lasers being one of them. Because after that, you started seeing them in the military. So that way it was easier for them to see. And again, in Charlie's Angels, you see them use laser recognition so that way they could scan the eye and they could get into the vault. Certain buildings still have that as far as being able to go into their facilities, That's one of the highest securities that you can have in the technology world. And again, to bring technology back into this, they're finding out more and more that there are aliens just everywhere. And the fact that we have more of their technology just shows that we are getting smarter and we are able to get more advanced and store more things. They say aliens have lifespans for years because of the fact that they don't reproduce. They don't have sex. They don't find the needs for doing drugs. They don't find the needs for doing certain things that waste and destroy our bodies. Their minds are bigger. Well, some of them. So again, and we also know too, because this isn't the first time that the government has had to release things. There was Project Blue Book, and there had been the UFO disclosure project, disclosure theory, and time again, you hear people saying that they've worked for the government, they've done things for the government, working in reverse engineering technology and things that they've found from aliens or extraterrestrial, and they find out years later that we're seeing it. I worked on that before, or it's happened before. Because Project Blue Book was something that was worked on. It was by this time, it was the third project that the government had said and picked a group of people and said, okay, you're working on this project for us, of this unidentified extraterrestrial phenomena. And that ended up becoming a department. They pretty much deal with anything extraterrestrial. And it's a whole department. Look it up. It's crazy. The unidentified extraterrestrial phenomena. They have also come out and said, here's this information about confirming of what Project Blue Book says. And Project Blue Book has been made into a TV show or a TV series on Showtime. And people have confirmed that they've worked on alien technology like Bob Lazar has. And just until recently, it's turning out to be true. So, they've been saying that there's like 57, I think I said this earlier, 57 different alien species that the American government, knows of. Then they confirmed these species. And it's crazy because that's what I was getting to, is that they have bodies that are not necessarily big or strong, but they have heads that are mostly large, or brains that are elongated, And some scientists, astronaut theorists, actually, they believe that they have evolved in such a way that it's more necessary for the brain to be big and strong compared to the body. Because the body, right now, we use it to hunt and eat and get our food and live. They would use their brain and figure out some type of technology, some type of system to get their food, whether it was to kill a lion or to kill a large rhino. They would find something, some booby trap way to get that food, because their brain has evolved enough for them to use it. Because our brain, at the moment, we've only unlocked 10%, so they say, of our brain. And some astronaut theorists believe that aliens have long been interacting with the humans. In fact, some ancient astronaut theorists believe that aliens manipulated the human genome, and that's how we've gotten to where we're at. Some ancient astronaut theorists believe that Darwin's origins and the evolution doesn't explain enough. And it doesn't explain, and there's, to be honest with you, it's not just ancient astronaut theorists who believe that. There are other people and other scientists and who don't believe that Darwin's evolution explains fully how we got from fully being fur to losing our fur, but still needing fur to cover us. They said some people, and this is coming from the ancient astronaut theorists, and the ones that I'm speaking of are from Ancient Aliens. Those guys, it's a good show, I watched that one as well. They believe that it just doesn't make sense that we went from that point to this point, but the only difference is standing up straight and being able to communicate. Some of them say that, and this is because they have discovered artifacts, a text, tablet, so to say, from ancient Sumerians, and they've translated them. And in the ancient Sumerians, they say that the Anunnakis came, gods, 8 feet tall, came from from the stars, and came and pretty much just gave them everything, gave them knowledge, food, things like that. Just worshipped them pretty much. And they left and, they don't come back. And some ancient alien theorists believe that they were the ones who came before the ancient Sumerians, and implanted what is known as the FOXP2 gene. Now, the FOXP2 gene, you can find that in the nucleotide of our body. That gene is the one difference between us and every other animal on the planet. It's the FOXP2 gene. That gene is what allows us to talk. And that's no other animal has that, obviously. So the fact that the FOXP2 gene is in us and no other animal, that's the part that people don't. The ancient alien theorists say that if the Darwin's evolution of random gene selection were to be true in evolution, then not every single person would be able to talk, because it would be a random selection of evolution. But in life, everybody can talk. And they're saying that in evolution, that evolution is an evolvement over time. So over time, we would have had some skeleton remains of the same time period of people who spoke and talked upright and those who didn't. And from what they were saying, they don't have any evidence, they don't have any archaeologists who have found bones from Homo sapiens and any of the other evolutions in the same time period. Lucy, being the oldest Homo sapien, is about it. But she stood up right. She talked. Now here's this. Okay. And this is the FOXP2 gene as someone who is not from an alien perspective. Okay. So this is the normal function of the FOXP2 gene. Provides instructions for making a protein called fork-head box-P2. This protein is a transcriptor factor, which means that it controls the activity of other genes. It attaches or binds to the DNA of these genes through a region known as a fork domain. Researchers suspect that the fork-head box-P2 protein may regulate hundreds of genes, although only some of its targets have been identified. The fork box-P2 protein is active in several tissues, including the brain, both before and after birth. Studies suggest that it plays important roles in brain development, including the growth of nerve cells, neurons, and transmissions of signals between them. It is also involved in synaptic plasticity, which is the ability of connections between neurons synapses to change and adapt to experience over time. Synaptic plasticity is necessary for learning and memory. The fork-head box-P2 protein appears to be essential for the normal development of speech and language. Researchers are working to identify the genes regulated by forked box-P2 that are critical for learning these skills. Now, I've been learning a little bit about DNA, more so looking some of this up and going back to that episode. And researchers still to this day do not know much about our gene, our DNA. And they're saying that they believe if they can unlock and get more information out of our DNA, that we can possibly find the answers to life. It's crazy to think of that, but I've been talking about aliens and have been releasing stuff about aliens or extraterrestrial life for quite some time now. If extraterrestrials truly wanted to take us out, which I don't believe they do, they would have already, and they will. They would. And I seen some conspiracies was saying that aliens are the ones who gave us the COVID. It's crazy. And I saw other people who thought that they aliens, because there was right around the time that the world closed and COVID hit, there was reports that a lot of UFOs have been sighted, like, kind of in an upward direction. People were saying in some conspiracy chat rooms, saying that it's because aliens could get sick from the COVID and that they don't have anything to protect themselves from this and that they're leaving. I don't believe that either, because some ancient alien theorists believe that aliens would have evolved in a way, because of the way the mind grows, that being sick, it would not be a thing. And if they were sick, it would be because they were dying or death, pretty much. It's just crazy, just because there's so many crazy theories about aliens. And so anytime someone talks about aliens, you're just like, oh, they're crazy. But I hope you have a different perspective. Watch the Bob Lazar. Check it out for yourself on Netflix. Watch the Project Blue Book on Showtime, if you can. I'm telling you, the government has been releasing stuff for years now. Years. And if you don't want to know, then you'll never know. And if you're curious, even a little bit, then check it out, because your mind will be blown. And it's not necessarily that, you have to be scared or anything, because in my opinion, I think they want to just live with us. They are doing experiments. They do abduct people. They do stuff. I don't believe they created us. I don't think they manipulated us. I believe in my God, and I believe in my religion, but I do believe in aliens. And if that's hard for you to understand that, then you gotta read the good book yourself, because it's quite possible. And it's quite possible that they're just envy of us. Because out of that list of 57 or 48 aliens, I want to say 4 of them were non-hostile. I believe it was 4 or 3. So I think they just want to experiment on us, and they're jealous of us. And that's why we see them. That's why they're here. That's why we have people who say they've made contact. Of course, you've got to weed out through bullshit, like all these shows that I've talked about, Ancient Aliens, Project Blue Book. There is some stuff that is good. More so Ancient Aliens. Ancient Aliens, you really have to just read through the BS, because there is truth in it, but it's like a line that's like through it, and you just gotta pull and find what is true and what is just, okay, come on, bruh. Because it's theory. Ancient Aliens, that's theory. Project Blue Book, you could say that's fact. Of course, a lot of people say, it takes the account of, I gotta see it with my own eyes. Well, a lot of these people did see it with their own eyes. And then other people are like, well, if there's no document, then, whatever. So it's what you believe. It's what you think. So watch it. Listen to them. I really suggest it. It's really good. But thank you guys for listening in today. Have a good one. Thank you, Elmo. You stay solid.